Hi, I'm Mark Ryan with Easy 8A, and I love to talk about anything related to 8A. In the last couple months, we've had some updates from the SBA with how they deal with follow-on contracts. So I'm going to talk about those. Let's get into it.
So there are four changes we've seen in the last couple months of 2023 where the SBA is clarifying how they're dealing with follow-on contracts. Specifically 13 CFR 124.506B. In that regulation, there's been a lot of confusion in the past. Basically, people were interpreting the reg to say if a contract was competitive 8A in the past, the follow-on contract could then not be moved to an entity owned organization, meaning, tribally owned, an ANC owned, or NHO owned. Well, that's not what the intent of that reg was. So the SBA has come back and said, no, what we're talking about is if the procurement is initially publicized as an 8A competitive, it cannot then be pulled and sole sourced to an entity owned. So basically, people were getting frustrated with an agency putting out a contract, people, 8A firms all getting ready to bid on it, working on their bids, and then the agency pulling it away and just sole sourcing it to an ANC. So that's no longer allowed. They've resolved that. The second update is to 124.504D3, and that's another misinterpretation where the SBA has been interpreted as saying if an agency wanted something released from the 8A program, they could do that by making sure that the follow-on procurement was done for a small business, hub zone, SDVOSB, or WOSB. And the SBA has come back to clarify and say that is not the case. We are still going to look at all of the evidence and make a determination if you're allowed to remove it from the 8A program or not. By just committing it to put it into one of the other programs does not automatically give an agency the right to take it out of 8A. They did make the point that if the agency is willing to put it into one of those other programs, that would be considered and would be helpful in the SBA making that decision, but it's not forcing them to make that decision to allow it to go out of 8A. Okay, the third clarification is to CFR 124.504. Here the SBA is wanting to clarify that they can release a procurement from 8A where the strategy is to the benefit of the incumbent and the incumbent has graduated. So if the agency wants to move the contract to a multiple award contract where the now graduated 8A incumbent can bid on it, that the SBA is allowed to do that, and you're going to see them doing that. And clearly, the SBA is wanting to help, 8A firms, and the intent of the program is to, help them transition out as well. They go on to clarify, though, that the SBA is not going to allow agencies to move 8A contracts into multiple award contracts where the incumbent doesn't have access to that multiple award contract, even if there's an 8A element to that multiple award contract. So again, they're looking at the best interest of the incumbent, and if that contract is critical to the incumbent, they're not going to allow agencies to move them into multiple award contracts that incumbent doesn't have access to. The fourth change is a reg change to 124.501B, and here the SBA is clarifying that agencies are not allowed to use multiple certifications on one contract. So they cannot put out a contract that says you have to be 8A and hub zone, or 8A and WOSB, or 8A and SDVOSB. So if a contract is going out for 8A, it has to go out for all 8As. It can't go out for 8As that also happen to be hub zone. This is already in the regulations in 125.2E6I, but the SBA is reiterating it here because it has not been interpreted properly in the past. So 8A, and that's it. We're not going to see multiple certs on awards, on contracts going forward. And that's our update.